What would you do if you woke up tomorrow and everything you depended upon had vanished? Consider the stark reality. Your employment, your residence, your accumulated savings, all gone. In the America of today, such a scenario might seem utterly implausible. Yet, the annals of history repeatedly demonstrate that societal collapse can manifest far more rapidly than anyone anticipates. If such an event were to transpire, millions of individuals could find themselves displaced onto the streets almost instantaneously. The truly alarming aspect? Certain segments of the population are already perilously close to this precipice. Numerous significant events have unfolded across the globe recently, demanding our attention. On our channel, we delve into the complex interplay of economics and politics shaping our world. We believe informed citizens make stronger societies. Therefore, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel and enable notifications so you don't miss critical updates. Please give this video a thumbs up. Your support is crucial for our channel's growth and helps us reach a wider audience. We'd also love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Understanding our audience helps us tailor our content better. Stick with us, as we'll be presenting crucial conclusions towards the end of this analysis. In this video, we will meticulously examine the 6 demographic groups most susceptible to experiencing homelessness first, should the United States face a systemic collapse. And crucially, why this analysis warrants your careful attention, even if you currently perceive yourself as financially secure. Because the unvarnished truth is, no one possesses the absolute security they might imagine. The first group demanding our focus is the elderly. As the United States grapples with escalating living expenses and pervasive economic uncertainty, senior citizens have quietly emerged as one of the most vulnerable demographics. It's a difficult truth to confront. Consider the narrative. Many individuals in this group dedicated decades of their lives to diligent work, raising families, and contributing consistently to systems like Social Security and Medicare, holding a firm belief that these structures would provide a safety net in their later years. They invested their labor and trust into a promise of security during retirement. However, the current economic climate reveals that this foundational promise is becoming increasingly fragile, even appearing to fracture under the weight of modern pressures. According to recent data analysis, nearly 40% of senior citizens depend almost entirely on Social Security benefits for their financial survival. The average monthly payment hovers around $1,800. Contrast this figure with the reality of the housing market, where average rent prices nationwide have surged beyond $3,000 per month in many urban and suburban areas. This creates an immediate and often insurmountable financial gap. This sum is starkly insufficient to cover basic necessities in numerous parts of the country. The discrepancy is glaring and leaves little room for maneuvering. Beyond housing, the financial pressures continue to mount. Medical expenses, often unpredictable and substantial for older adults, consume a significant portion of their limited income. The cost of food staples continues to rise due to inflationary pressures felt across the economy. Utility bills, heating, electricity, water, represent another non-negotiable expense that strains already tight budgets. Transportation costs, whether for personal vehicles or public transit, add another layer to the financial burden. These cumulative expenses stretch their fixed incomes to the absolute limit, leaving virtually no buffer for unforeseen circumstances or emergencies. For a vast number of elderly individuals, a single unexpected financial shock can trigger a cascade into destitution. This could manifest as an unforeseen hospital stay resulting in substantial medical bills not fully covered by insurance, a sudden and significant rent increase imposed by a landlord, or governmental cuts to social programs they rely upon. Any one of these events can serve as the tipping point, pushing them from precarious stability into the harsh reality of homelessness. This vulnerability is compounded by factors unique to older age. Unlike younger generations who might have the physical capacity or network to pick up supplementary side jobs or relocate to areas with better economic prospects, seniors often lack these options. Health issues, which naturally become more prevalent with age, can severely limit their ability to work or adapt. Furthermore, recovering from a significant financial setback becomes exponentially more difficult when physical and potentially cognitive limitations are present. The prospect of rebuilding savings or finding suitable employment diminishes significantly. Across various states, particularly those with high costs of living such as California and Arizona, the evidence of this crisis is becoming increasingly visible. It's no longer uncommon to witness elderly Americans living out of their vehicles, forced to set up makeshift tents in parking lots, or lining up hopefully for limited beds in homeless shelters. This isn't a distant problem. It's a reality unfolding in communities across the nation. These are individuals who represent the generation that largely built the modern infrastructure of the country. Dedicated teachers, diligent factory workers who powered American industry, compassionate nurses who cared for the sick, and honorable veterans who served the nation. Now, tragically, many find themselves effectively abandoned precisely when they require the most assistance and support. Should America confront a true systemic economic collapse, the consequences for the elderly population would be devastating. They wouldn't merely struggle. A significant number would face the loss of everything they spent a lifetime accumulating: their homes, their security, their dignity. And perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of this potential reality is the scarcity of safety nets available once they fall. The systems designed to protect them are already strained, and in a full-blown crisis, they could prove woefully inadequate, leaving few resources to catch those who tumble into homelessness. It serves as a stark and sobering reminder. In a collapsing economy, the simple act of growing old could transform into the greatest financial risk of all. We urge you to watch this video through to the end, as we will be summarizing the key takeaways and drawing important conclusions about this pressing issue. The second group facing immense vulnerability comprises young adults burdened by significant student debt. Today's younger generation is entering arguably one of the most challenging economic landscapes in recent American history. They are shouldering a financial weight that previous generations never encountered on this scale: massive, often crippling student loan debt. They followed the prescribed path, internalizing the message that higher education was the definitive key to achieving success and financial stability. They were encouraged to work diligently, take out substantial loans to finance their degrees, with the implicit promise that their investment would be rewarded with secure, well-paying jobs and long-term financial security. This was the narrative presented to them by society, educational institutions, and often their own families. However, the reality they have encountered upon graduation has diverged sharply from this optimistic projection. As of 2024, the total outstanding student loan debt in the United States has soared past an astonishing $1.77 trillion. This colossal figure underscores the magnitude of the issue. The average individual borrower now owes more than $37,000. It's crucial to note that this is merely the average. Many individuals carry debt burdens double or even triple that amount, particularly those who pursued graduate or professional degrees. This debt hangs over them as they attempt to launch their careers and build their lives. Meanwhile, the economic landscape they've entered offers limited relief. Starting salaries in many fields have failed to keep pace with the escalating cost of living and the sheer size of their educational debt. Frequently, entry-level positions offer wages that barely scrape above the minimum wage threshold, especially in fields that have become oversaturated with graduates vying for a limited number of positions. The promised return on their educational investment often fails to materialize, leaving them in a precarious financial state from the outset. These young adults are stepping into a job market increasingly characterized by contract-based gigs, unstable freelance work, and intense competition for traditional full-time roles. Unlike older generations who may have benefited from defined benefit pensions or had opportunities to build equity through homeownership earlier in life, this cohort generally lacks substantial assets to fall back on. They typically possess no significant home equity, minimal savings, and are instead confronted with relentless monthly debt payments that rarely cease, even in times of hardship. When an economic collapse strikes, this generation, laden with debt and lacking assets, will be among the very first to experience the severe repercussions. Layoffs disproportionately affect entry-level and less experienced positions, which many recent graduates occupy. Simultaneously, the cost of living, particularly rent, often continues its upward trajectory, further squeezing their already strained budgets. Opportunities for career advancement or finding alternative employment can evaporate almost overnight in a downturn. For these young adults, the consequences are immediate and dire. Missing just a few paychecks due to job loss or reduced hours can swiftly lead to eviction, plunging them into homelessness. Compounding their plight is the persistent burden of their student debt, which, unlike most other forms of debt, is notoriously difficult, often impossible, to discharge through bankruptcy. This leaves them in a uniquely grim situation, facing homelessness while still obligated to make payments on loans for an education that hasn't provided the promised financial security. Many are already navigating a tightrope existence, living paycheck to paycheck, often juggling 2 or 3 jobs simply to remain afloat and meet their basic needs alongside their debt obligations. This relentless financial pressure forces many to postpone traditional life milestones that previous generations took for granted, such as purchasing a home, starting a family, or even achieving the basic independence of moving out of their parents' houses. If a true economic collapse materializes, this demographic won't just lose their tentative financial footing. They risk losing the fragile beginnings of the adult lives they have been struggling so hard to construct against significant economic headwinds. In a system that often seems structured to set them up for financial struggle from the start, they may find themselves abandoned at the very moment they most desperately need support and relief. The third demographic, acutely vulnerable in an economic downturn, consists of service industry and gig economy workers. These individuals form the operational backbone of daily life in contemporary America. Their labor is ubiquitous, yet often undervalued. From the cashier processing your grocery purchase and the barista preparing your morning coffee to the rideshare driver transporting you to work and the delivery person bringing your evening meal, these workers perform the essential tasks that keep the machinery of society functioning smoothly. They are the faces we interact with daily, the hands that provide countless conveniences. The service sector and the burgeoning gig economy have become fundamental components of the modern American workforce, employing millions. However, concealed behind their constant activity and essential contributions lies a frequently harsh and precarious reality. The overwhelming majority of these workers exist in a state of financial fragility. They typically live paycheck to paycheck, often earning wages close to or only slightly above the minimum threshold. Furthermore, their employment usually lacks the traditional safety nets associated with full-time salaried positions. Benefits such as employer-sponsored health insurance, retirement plans like 401ks, paid sick leave, or disability coverage are often non-existent or prohibitively expensive. Job security is minimal, particularly in the gig economy where work can fluctuate dramatically based on demand and platform algorithms. There is rarely a safety net of severance pay or robust unemployment benefits to cushion the blow of job loss or a sudden reduction in hours. Nearly 60 million Americans currently work within the service sector. A substantial portion of this workforce earns less than $15 per hour. This wage level, often without access to affordable health insurance or any form of retirement savings plan, leaves little margin for error. They lack any real form of long-term financial protection or stability. During periods of relative economic prosperity, the inherent instability of this type of employment might seem manageable, albeit stressful. Workers might piece together enough hours or gigs to cover immediate expenses. However, should the American economy plunge into a deep recession or face a more severe collapse, service and gig workers will inevitably be among the primary casualties. Their livelihoods are directly tied to consumer spending and overall economic activity. As consumers tighten their belts during hard times, discretionary spending plummets. Restaurants experience reduced patronage and may be forced to close permanently. Retail shops witness declining sales, leading to widespread staff layoffs. Travel-related industries, including hotels, airlines, and ride-sharing services, suffer immediate and drastic reductions in demand, causing jobs in these areas to vanish almost overnight. Gig workers, including rideshare drivers, food delivery personnel, and freelance creatives, will see their contracts evaporate and demand for their services plummet as households and businesses cut back on non-essential expenditures. Unlike traditional full-time employees who might receive severance packages or qualify for unemployment benefits to bridge the gap. Gig workers and many service employees are often left with nothing when their income streams dry up. Many individuals in the service industry already stretch their limited incomes to the breaking point. It's common for them to share apartments with multiple roommates to afford rent, or to work multiple jobs simultaneously just to cover basic living costs. They operate with no savings cushion and possess no significant financial assets to fall back on during emergencies. Consequently, even a minor disruption, a temporary illness preventing work, a car breakdown, or a slight increase in rent can push them over the edge and onto the streets. In the context of a major economic collapse, the scale of homelessness among this demographic could become staggering. Shelters would quickly reach capacity, and emergency housing resources would be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of need. These are some of the most industrious people in the country, often greeting customers with a smile while internally grappling with immense financial stress. They hand you your coffee, stock the shelves you browse, and clean the spaces you occupy. Yet the brutal truth remains that our current economic structure often treats them as disposable components rather than valued contributors. When the economic foundation crumbles, they will be the ones impacted first, hit the hardest, and, all too often, left invisible and unsupported amidst the wreckage. The fourth group facing exceptional risk during an economic downturn is single parents. Single parents navigate an incredibly demanding reality even in stable economic times, perpetually walking a tightrope to maintain equilibrium. They single-handedly juggle the immense responsibilities of employment, childcare, household management, bill payments, and the myriad other duties that come with raising children, often without a consistent safety net. According to recent statistics, there are over 11 million single-parent households in the United States. The vast majority of these households are headed by women. For these individuals, life is a constant balancing act performed under significant pressure. They are simultaneously the primary breadwinners, responsible for earning enough income to support their family, and the primary caregivers, tasked with the nurturing, supervision, and emotional support of their children. This dual role often occurs without reliable or consistent support from family members, a co-parent, or adequate government assistance programs. Every dollar earned is meticulously budgeted and stretched thin to cover essentials like rent or mortgage payments, food, clothing, utilities, and childcare costs. Every hour of the day is carefully accounted for, divided between work obligations, commuting, parenting duties, and household chores. There is little room for error, and even less for personal respite. Any unexpected expense can quickly become a catastrophic event. Whether it's a medical emergency for themselves or a child, a sudden rent hike, an essential car repair needed for transportation to work and school, or a reduction in work hours, such events can destabilize their fragile financial situation almost immediately. When America faces a broad economic collapse, single parents are positioned among the most acutely vulnerable populations. They lack the luxury of easily relocating to find cheaper housing or better job opportunities, as uprooting children involves significant logistical and emotional challenges, including changing schools and disrupting established routines. Working overtime or taking on additional jobs is often impossible due to the non-negotiable demands of childcare. Someone must still be available to pick children up from school, prepare meals, help with homework, and provide care when a child falls ill, especially during the night. The lack of affordable and accessible childcare is a major barrier, preventing many single parents from seeking better employment or pursuing retraining opportunities that could improve their long-term prospects. Furthermore, the scarcity of affordable housing means that even working full-time, sometimes at multiple jobs, is often insufficient to secure and maintain a stable home for their family. In an economic collapse, shelters and emergency housing services would likely fill up rapidly, potentially leaving single-parent families with nowhere safe to turn. Many assistance programs designed to help low-income families also have stringent income limits or work requirements that create benefit cliffs. This means that a small increase in earnings can result in a disproportionately large loss of essential benefits like food assistance or housing subsidies, effectively trapping families in poverty and discouraging career advancement. This leaves single parents in an impossible bind. often deemed too rich to qualify for crucial help, yet undeniably too poor to survive without it, especially during a crisis. The loss of a job, which is highly probable during widespread layoffs in sectors where many single parents work, like service industries, retail, and healthcare support, could translate into immediate homelessness due to the complete absence of a financial buffer. Single parents and their children could find themselves relegated to living in vehicles, cycling between the couches of friends or relatives, or being forced into dangerous or unstable living situations simply to avoid sleeping on the streets. These individuals are among the strongest and most resilient members of society, fighting tirelessly every single day to create a better future for their children against considerable odds. However, even the most resilient individuals require support when the systems around them fail. If America falls into a deep economic crisis, single parents will be among the first to bear the heaviest burden, facing devastating consequences with potentially limited recourse. The fifth group at heightened risk in an economic collapse scenario consists of former industrial workers. These individuals represent a proud and significant chapter in the narrative of American economic history. Yet today, their circumstances also serve as a stark symbol of one of the nation's most profound economic vulnerabilities. They are the men and women who once formed the backbone of the American industrial engine, laboring diligently in steel mills, auto plants, textile factories, and countless other manufacturing facilities that powered the nation's growth and prosperity for generations. Entire towns and communities flourished around these industries, offering not just employment, but good wages, stable benefits like healthcare and pensions, and a strong sense of purpose and identity for millions of working-class families. These jobs built the American middle class and defined an era of widespread opportunity. However, the economic landscape underwent a dramatic transformation. The combined forces of globalization, which shifted manufacturing overseas to lower-cost labor markets, automation, which replaced human workers with machines, and widespread outsourcing strategies adopted by corporations led to a gutting of American manufacturing. As factories shuttered and industries declined, these workers, who had often dedicated their entire careers to a single trade or company, were left stranded. Since the year 2000 alone, estimates indicate that over 5 million manufacturing jobs have disappeared in the United States. With the loss of these jobs went not only paychecks, but also the stability, pride, and security that had defined their lives and communities. Former industrial hubs, cities like Detroit, Buffalo, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Gary, once symbols of American industrial might, experienced severe decline, transforming into struggling Rust Belt areas marked by population loss, urban decay, and diminished economic prospects. Many turned into virtual ghost towns almost overnight, leaving behind a legacy of hardship. For numerous workers left behind by these seismic economic shifts, viable alternative employment options were scarce. The skills honed over decades in manufacturing often didn't translate directly to the growing service or technology sectors. They were frequently faced with the difficult choice between accepting low-wage service jobs lacking benefits and long-term security, or facing chronic unemployment or underemployment. Many former industrial workers are now middle-aged or older. They find themselves in a difficult position, often too young to qualify for full retirement benefits, yet perceived as too old or lacking the requisite skills to easily retrain for entirely new careers in a rapidly changing economy. They grapple with chronic unemployment or piece together part-time, low-paying jobs. Many struggle to pay mortgages on homes located in depressed areas where property values have plummeted, sometimes losing half or more of their original worth, erasing decades of accumulated equity. They reside in towns where economic opportunity dried up years ago, with limited prospects for revitalization. Any savings accumulated during their working years, if they existed at all, have likely been depleted long ago by periods of unemployment or the struggle to make ends meet on reduced incomes. Furthermore, years of physically demanding labor often result in chronic health issues such as back problems, joint pain, or respiratory ailments. These health challenges further impede their ability to remain competitive in the job market or take on physically strenuous roles, even if available. In the event of a major economic collapse, These former industrial workers are exceptionally vulnerable to falling into homelessness. They have already endured one profound economic disaster, the collapse of American manufacturing, and lack the resources to weather another. Without significant policy interventions or robust support systems specifically designed to address their unique circumstances, a second major economic hit would likely be devastating. It would push those who are barely holding on into a free fall from which recovery might be impossible. Their situation represents the plight of a generation that adhered to the social contract, played by the established rules, built the foundational infrastructure and economic strength of the nation, and yet found themselves abandoned when the economic winds shifted direction due to forces largely beyond their control. In the broader story of American resilience and adaptation, former industrial workers should have been a focus of support and retraining efforts. Instead, too many now serve as a cautionary tale, a living warning sign of the societal consequences when a nation forgets or fails to adequately support the very people who built its prosperity. The sixth and final group we highlight as being particularly vulnerable in the event of an American economic collapse is our nation's veterans. Veterans are frequently lauded and celebrated as heroes in public discourse, honored for their sacrifices and service to the country. Parades, holidays, and expressions of gratitude are common. However, beneath this narrative of appreciation lies a harsher reality. Many veterans confront a difficult and often uncertain future upon returning to civilian life. The transition itself can be fraught with challenges. After dedicating years, sometimes decades, of their lives to military service, a period defined by structure, camaraderie, and a unique set of skills and experiences, many veterans struggle to readjust to the complexities and ambiguities of the civilian world. Finding stable and meaningful employment can prove to be an unexpectedly arduous task. This is particularly true for those who enlisted directly out of high school and consequently never had the opportunity to establish a civilian career path or gain non-military work experience. The specialized skills acquired during military service, while invaluable in a defense context, do not always translate seamlessly into the civilian job market. Many employers may overlook, misunderstand, or undervalue military experience when evaluating candidates, creating barriers to securing good jobs. Mental health issues significantly compound these transitional difficulties. A substantial number of veterans grapple with conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, depression, anxiety, and traumatic brain injuries, TBI, often stemming directly from traumatic experiences encountered during their service, including combat exposure. Accessing consistent and appropriate mental health care can be inconsistent. While organizations like the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, strive to provide support, many veterans report difficulties navigating the bureaucracy, long waiting times for appointments, or services that don't fully meet their complex needs. As a result, many fall through the cracks, left to manage debilitating conditions without adequate professional help. Financial instability represents another major threat. Veterans unable to secure steady work often find themselves relying on disability payments or small pensions. These fixed incomes are frequently insufficient to cover the rapidly rising costs of housing, health care, including specialized treatments not covered by the VA, and basic everyday living expenses, especially in higher-cost areas. In a stable economy, some veterans already exist in a precarious state, living paycheck to paycheck, constantly teetering on the edge of homelessness. The issue of veteran homelessness is already a serious national problem, with tens of thousands estimated to be sleeping on the streets or in shelters on any given night, a tragic statistic for those who serve the nation. In the scenario of a full-scale economic collapse, this already dire number could skyrocket exponentially. Support systems would be overwhelmed, and resources stretched thin. Many veterans also lack strong family or community ties upon returning home. Frequent relocations during their military careers can lead to weakened connections with extended family or hometown communities. Furthermore, the profound nature of their military experiences can sometimes create a sense of disconnect from civilian society, leading to feelings of isolation and making it harder to build robust support networks. When the broader economy crashes and existing support systems falter or become overburdened, these isolated individuals could be among the first to lose their homes, lacking the personal safety nets others might rely on. It presents a bitter irony. The very individuals who risked everything, including their lives, for the security and well-being of their country, might find themselves abandoned and facing homelessness when they themselves are in greatest need of support. Veterans have repeatedly demonstrated extraordinary resilience, both during their service and often in their post-military lives. However, resilience alone cannot overcome systemic failures or a lack of adequate resources. If America collapses economically, without deliberate, targeted, and robust support structures in place specifically for veterans, many will be left fighting yet another difficult battle, this time not on a foreign field, but on the streets of their own country, simply struggling to survive. America's most vulnerable populations, the elderly, young adults drowning in debt, low-wage service and gig workers, single parents, former industrial workers, and veterans, are facing a greater degree of risk than ever before. If the nation were to experience a profound economic collapse, many within these groups could tragically find themselves without a home, cast adrift in a society struggling to cope. From the seniors who built the nation to the veterans who defended it, from the squeezed middle class trying to stay afloat to the gig workers powering the modern economy, the potential for widespread hardship is immense. It's a stark reality that demands our collective attention and cannot be ignored or wished away. However, recognizing the problem is only the first step. Meaningful change is indeed possible. It begins with fostering a deeper understanding of these complex issues, acknowledging the systemic factors that contribute to vulnerability. It requires actively supporting those who are most in need through community initiatives, advocacy, and charitable action. Crucially, it necessitates pushing for and implementing policies that genuinely protect everyone, regardless of their background, age, or circumstance. Policies that strengthen social safety nets, promote affordable housing, address predatory debt practices, ensure fair wages and benefits, and provide robust support for those transitioning from military service or declining industries. Thank you for watching. We hope this analysis has been informative. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more in-depth discussions on critical economic and political issues, and share this video to help raise awareness. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay safe, and let's strive to take care of one another.